Hi, this is Don McLean, and you're watching Lifeminute TV.
He gave us one of the most iconic songs of all time.
I started singing Bye Bye Miss American Pie. Drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry.
At 78 years young, American treasure Don McLean is still giving us great music. We were so fortunate to have him back at the Lifeminute studios recently to tell us all about his latest album, American Boys. 13 tracks honoring rock and roll and those who paved its way. This is the Lifeminute with Don McLean.
How have I lasted this long? That's the key now. That's the question.
Longevity.
How did I do it?
How did you do it?
Don't push yourself. Live to fight another day. Don't rush around too much. Jim Croce died rushing him around. The wonderful Ricky Nelson, beautiful Ricky Nelson, died rushing him around all over the place. One day I said, don't push me. I'll go when I'm ready. We'll do it the way I want to do it. Best decision I ever made, because I ran until 1974, and I had a nervous breakdown.
How old were you when that happened?
1975, I was about 29, but I figured it out. This is what kills people. You know, I wasn't equipped for this. You know, you don't grow up being equipped for fame and stardom and money. This lady came to interview me after I had become very famous, and she wrote this article. I said, Don McLean is a millionaire. And I thought about all those girls whose parents didn't want me to take their daughter out, you know.
Retribution.
They now changed their whole tune, you know. I told her not to do that, but she went and did it anyway.
I know you were so young when you started. Did you always know you wanted to be a musician?
That's the only thing I was any good at. The only thing that got any reaction that made me think that I was different than other kids was when I sang. When I would sing, the mothers would call my mother. They would say, oh, everybody loved Donnie singing. You have to do something with that. I loved to do it. And then Elvis Presley and the Kingston Trio happened almost at the same time. And guys, everybody was playing guitars and banjos, and Elvis was playing guitar. And I think, boy, you know, if I could just play one of those things, I could be a contained person. Just fell right in my lap. It was amazing. I mean, because prior to that, if you wanted to be a singer, you'd have to read music and sing with an orchestra. And I didn't want to do that. I can't read music, and I didn't want to sing with an orchestra. But this was perfect, and I loved it so much. And banjo, too, 5-string banjo. I became a really good folk banjo player, and I used to be on a lot of records. That's how I would augment my living. They would call me in to play because I was good at it. I learned from Pete Seeger and Eric Darling, and the best. Whoever knew how to do this taught me everything they know how to do, and I know how to do it all.
When did you get your first guitar?
Well, I think about 12. Somebody taught me a couple of chords on the guitar. If you teach a kid E, A, B7, 3 chords, you can play almost anything. In fact, my son loved Meatloaf, you know, and he got a songbook and everything. I said, Wyatt, these are simple songs. So let me show you these 3 chords. In a month, he was playing every Meatloaf song on his guitar.
Did your parents do that for you? Were they supportive for your music career? No.
My father was anti-music, anti-show business, but my mother was Italian, and she liked my singing. She would always encourage me to sing and perform. My father passed away when I was 15. Then I was in charge of my whole life. Nobody could tell me anything. I remember telling my mother, I did everything for my mother. I said, don't tell me what to do anymore, because I'm not going to do it. I know what I've got to do. And I took care of her, you know. And she told me, you know, I didn't raise you, you raised yourself. I fell in love with a guitar. I'm still in love with a guitar.
What about writing? When did you know you could write?
I don't know what happened to me. So I remember about 1964 thinking maybe I could write a song, because I'd heard simple Woody Guthrie songs, you know. But they're not so simple. And they take a person who has a lot of empathy and understanding of history and of common, regular, hardworking people, which I certainly did not have. But I thought I could write a simple song with a chorus, you know, which is really what American Pie is. It's a complicated song with a chorus, but it's still a folk song in that sense.
So bye, bye, Miss American Pie. Drove my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry.
But I had no confidence in myself that way. The way I had confidence was in myself was as a singer. And I started to play the guitar, I started to get good at it. And then a few songs came, I don't know how to describe it, but it built. And then I got near Seeger in the late 60s, and a lot of songwriters were around, and I'm very competitive. I started thinking, you know, what can I do to really do something that's great, you know, and came up with this Tapestry album, which had all these songs on it. And that changed my life. The next album I did, I was world famous. You can't imagine what it's like to be world famous in a minute, and it stays that way. You go to these countries and they all want to hear these songs. They never forget you. I had 3 #1 records over a period of time and a lot of minor records that were pretty famous. And then, but things started to morph over, you know, into the, you know, vinyl ended and the DVD, the CD came, and you had a whole dance thing, which started to take hold in the mid-70s. But then you had, you know, amazing people like Prince and Michael Jackson and coming up and doing an athletic event, you know, to perform. And it was not something we were going to do. So Garth Brooks has me come to Central Park in 1997. He's been singing my songs for all these years, from the time he was not well known till he was this gigantic star. And he's running all over that stage, man. He's like a athletic event again, you know?
And it's not just him. Madonna, Drake, Tupac Shakur, Josh Groban have all done your songs multiple times.
It makes me happy that people from all different areas in life are interested in my ideas. That I like, because I'm an idea man. That's what these records are for. I'm not a consistent hit maker. I've had some hits.
But only the most important ones of all time.
I saw Bob Dylan in 1962. Sing at a concert. Pete Seeger brought him there. It was a hootenanny at Carnegie Hall. And I saw him sing Hard Rains Are Gonna Fall.
It's a hard rain, they're gonna fall.
I left that hall thinking, man, I never heard anything like that. Suddenly poetry mattered. Words really mattered. And luckily for me, I was able to make some records and get some stuff, my best work, across to people. A miracle, really, because, you know, I was very reticent. I was not anxious to be famous as such. I didn't mind it, you know, but from the time I had started playing guitar, I had always had girls chasing me. I mean, and when I would look out there, you know, in 1971, there'd be 5,000 women with their hair parted in the middle or wearing granny glasses, you know, wanting to take me home. I didn't understand that. I didn't know what I had gotten myself into.
What do you mean?
I just didn't understand it. It's unprecedented. If you grew up in my house, my father was a salesman, and my mother was a very quiet woman who wasn't a gregarious or a mingler, you know, one of those loud drinking people, you know. No, my mother was, both my parents did not want to be noticed.
Did your mom see you become famous?
Oh, yes. Yeah, all the way through crying in the 80s. They were in their 40s when I was born, and I had a sister who was 15 years older than me. As a little guy, you know, I was either amusing to them or I was in the way. But I would say some things, and one thing I said, I am going to be famous, and I'm going to buy, Mom, and I'm going to buy you a mink coat. Well, gales of laughter. I mean, do you know what Donnie said? He said he's going to be famous and buy Betty a mink coat. Well, you know. I have the picture of my mother in the mink coat going to Carnegie Hall.
Oh, it's awesome. It's fantastic.
I've reached a lot of people and made them happy. And that's all. And they have made me happy. My audience has given me everything, you know, and they've stood by me and made me into somebody well respected and wealthy and everything else. I owe the audience everything for this, and I'm always aware of that, and I try to just sing well and do the best I can every night.
And I love you so. The people ask me how.
I want to talk about And I Love You So.
I wanted to try to write a song like the ones I heard when I was a little boy on the radio, the popular music of the 1940s and 50s, which we were brought up on.
How old were you when you wrote that song?
Oh, 23, 24. Yeah, I had a good run with that Tapestry album. I was very inspired. And I wanted to put so many different kinds of music because I was interested in so many different things. And that set the framework for everything that came after.
Some of those songs are just so sad. You were so young when you wrote some of them. How does such a young man, how do you have those words?
I love ideas, and I've been gifted with a receptive system of some sort. I think about it as getting things on my radio. And I have these ideas, and I have these. Sometimes the whole song will come to me in the morning and on my radio, and then I got to run to the tape recorder and try to sing it in there before I forget it, because it's subtle. There's subtle things that have to be right.
So you really do sing it. It's not like you write the words down. You actually sing the melody.
Yeah, I'll sing the words and the melody right into the tape recorder, and then I'll get a form going, and then I'll work back off of it and start to write words to fit the next part of the form, but the form is established with, it always has been, both together.
Well, I know that you're in love with him, 'cause I saw you dancing in the gym.
If you see the movie, The Day the Music Died, you'll see the first part of American Pie. I had this thing brewing, I just sang the whole thing right into the tape recorder, right up through to The Day the Music Died, the whole slow part in the beginning. And it just came out of me. It was like a genie out of a bottle. I said, what is that? I knew I'd captured, finally, after 10 years, I'd captured what I wanted to say about Buddy Holly's plane crash. I did it. So I took 3 months and I thought about it, came up with this crazy chorus, and then a structure for the song, and then I came up with this concept, which is that politics informs music and music informs politics. And that's very normal because the same population is producing the politicians and the musicians. So they have the same background, but moving forward. So as we move forward through the 60s, this happens, that happens, the rest of the music changes, everything gets wilder. Now I see some very dumb music and very dumb politicians. And I'm thinking the theory is right. I'm thinking to myself, you're right. It's like all these years later, it still works. The folk thing was huge. It's hard to really relate because it fizzled when the Beatles came along. But the Kingston Trio were an enormously popular group, and they popularized the idea of playing guitars and banjos and singing songs. And you'd be surprised at the musical instruments that came out of people's attics in those days. This is Grandma's 5-string, this is Grandpa's guitar. So I got way into that, collecting instruments and learning about them, Martin guitars, Gibson guitars. It was a wonderful thing because all of us kids started making our own music, and you'd run into guys from Yonkers or whatever who were great players, and you'd play with them, meet them. And it sustained me. I don't know why, I know how it did it. I was so sure, and I loved it so much that I was so sure I could do this. I went through all the 60s. I went to college, I got out, I quit school, went back, all this stuff happened. I still never shook my belief that I was, and I got my degree, and by this time I knew Seeger. And I remember getting my degree and looking up and saying, well, Dad, I did it. And now I'm going up the river. And so I went up the river and played folk music with Pete Seeger for 7 years. Learned a lot.
Starry, starry night, paint your palette blue and gray.
Starry, starry night. I love that one too.
That was written when I was living at a place called the Sedgwick House in Lenox, Massachusetts. I was an unknown, and I got a job singing in the school system, the high schools, the colleges, the grammar schools. The house was filled with beautiful antiques, and I was sitting down reading this story about Van Gogh, and I thought, wow, that'd be a really good idea. I wrote the song, I sang it into my tape recorder. I worked on it, I think, for a day or two. And then I had a job singing it at a high school thing at night. And I took the paper with me, and I sang it to these kids. And they weren't paying any attention to me at all. You know, they were with their dates and they were drinking and talking, and all of a sudden I sang Starry, Starry Night. Quiet. I thought to myself, wow, that's beautiful, that's amazing. I knew I had something. Because if you could get them to shut up and really listen, which they did, so there's something there.
All right, let's talk about American Boys, a tribute to your rock and roll heroes.
Yes, but it's also a chance to tell the American public that American Boys invented rock and roll. We invented rock and roll, we invented jazz, we invented the blues. We are Americans in a very judgmental cycle where everybody's always knocking the country.
I never met a thunderstorm girl like you.
Thunderstorm Girl, is that about Paris?
Thunderstorm Girl is but the Mexicali Gal is about my girl Paris.
I got a Mexicali gal, the best you ever see.
Thunderstorm Girl could be about her for sure. She hasn't left me yet though, so that.
Take me through some of the songs, some more.
I like the Marley song, Save Yourself.
Save yourself, whispered Marley.
That again is a very important message for people to realize that you only have these moments. We are alive, we are miracles, and we have these moments to do things, good things, bad things, do nothing, but we have only this time to do it. It's passing quickly, and we have to do the right thing, and I think that the problem is that there's all this judging going on, and there's all this extremism, which really closes the mind to other points of view. We all have something we can add, to the discussion. There's nothing wrong in believing in something, whether it's your religion or your family or whatever.
Vacant luxury.
Vacant luxury? That's a sleeper on the record. That's about everything. That's about all this excess that I'm talking about. You can't live but in one place at a time. And you read about all these people that have 10 homes, and me, I have 5. I love the idea of what happened to people during the pandemic, running away from the cities and running to rural places, that were very much not of any great interest to them, but only because they were frightened. There was a whole big mess that happened in there. It messed everything up. And it could happen again. And we know it, because once one thing happens once, you're always waiting for the other thing to happen.
George Floyd called for his mother.
Oh, the Ballad of George Floyd.
My mother used to come to me at night, and when I was damn near dying of pneumonia, she would give me a bat to hit the floor with. Say, if you can't breathe, I'll come to you. I would be reluctant to do it because I'd have to wake her up at 2 in the morning, and I'd be crying and sweating, and the bed would be wet and everything, sweating. She'd get alcohol on me and a cold. It was awful. She'd be crying and worrying. Oh, Donnie, what's the matter? What can I do? I couldn't do anything. I heard this guy calling for his mother, and I said, you know what? He ain't that dangerous. Because I know what it's like. So I just came at me again. Just wrote the song and right there,
Amazing.
Told what it is, what he said. He couldn't breathe.
What's your favorite song to play live?
I like American Boys. We play it before American Pie sometimes at the end of the show.
Yeah, American boys invented rock and roll.
I like Thunderstorm Girl. I like George Floyd's song. I like the Marley song. I like Truth and Fame.
Life comes at you fast. That's the price of truth and fame.
We sometimes do a few I knew a lot of blues guys growing up, and I was so lucky to be in Greenwich Village in the 60s when, John Hurt and all those folk performers. I knew Josh White. Brownie McGee and Sonny Terry, I used to work with them. And I got to live with them actually in Lenox, Massachusetts. Sometimes I'd be the opening act, and they'd put us in a communal area And they'd be playing, and I'd listen during the day and learn blues things from Brownie. So there's a lot of I learned the blues, and Vincent really is a kind of blues when you think about it. There's I write a lot of blues songs. Success ruined me. I never had the same concentration. I never had the same innocence. I never had the same yearning. I was successful, and there was pressure on me to sell seats and sell records, and the whole thing became an unpleasant exercise. And I continued. I did some good work, but I never had the adoration that I had for record making and even the whole business as I did in the first, let's say, 3 albums I made. The Don McLean album is important. It's like a trilogy. That's my story. What happens to a lot of people who are not really performers as such, because performers are tough people. I'm a poet and more of a thinker. I go with feelings and with romance and with emotion. This was different, So nothing lasts forever.
Well, this album's really good, so all these years
later. The first 3 albums really are me in a nutshell.
What's something no one knows about you?
Why would I tell them? Then they'd know. I'm a Western film expert. I know about saddlery and horses and Western history and Western movies and Western movie stars.
And you have horses too, right?
I still have 3.
And a lot of cowboy boots. I heard you have a huge cowboy boot collection.
Yeah, I had a big auction. So I sold a lot of my clothes and cowboy boots, and I still have some saddlery, my belt buckle. And I want you to see it.
I love it. Oh, wow. That's beautiful.
And I want you to see what it says inside.
Don McLean, King of the Trail.
And this is something I designed with a great designer named Ahmad Khan. I have a favorite photograph, and I had him, a modeler, extract that and put it, and we created this, the rider riding right at you off the buckle.
Oh, wow. That's the one you always take with you?
Yeah, I have several, but I take this one. And good luck. It always keeps me grounded, I guess.
So great. Such an honor to have you here again with us. To hear more of this interview, visit our podcast, Lifeminute TV, on iTunes and all streaming podcast platforms.